Hi there, I am Dion Opperman. Welcome to where I unpack what it means to be a writer in the age of AI. In this episode, I pick up where I left off in episode 5, part 1. If you haven't watched that episode, I suggest you watch it first. I will now give the extended prompt that I showed and discussed in the previous episode to Claude 3.5 Sonnet, which is my preferred platform at this point in time. The prompt has been structured to guide the AI to think about storytelling in the way that I think about storytelling. Yes, you could ask the AI to devise its own chain of thought steps to develop your story, but I want the AI to use the steps that I like to use when I develop a story concept and informed by the narrative principles that guide my writing. I don't want the AI to do its own thing. I want it to help me do my thing better, to augment my personal writing process. Okay, so let's input the prompt. Okay, so here's Claude. First thing, I'm going to just paste. I've already pre-copied that. Execute the following prompt. So you will remember the prompt that I discussed in the previous episode. Here it is. So I copy the entire prompt and then go and paste it into Claude. And then let's see what happens. So here it's asking me, as is instructed in the prompt, for the basic ID info, which I've already generated. So I'll just paste that in there. There it goes. Name, age. Name John Dunn, age 46, gender and sexual identity, male, heterosexual, ethnicity, Caucasian, nationality, South African. I've just created that character for the purposes of this illustration. Now it asks me to provide my description of the world of the story. What kind of world does John Dunn inhabit? And notice this is the world of the story, not the character's world within that story. It's the background canvas of where and when this story happens. Later on, when we develop characters, we'll develop the character's world within the larger world of the story. So this is relatively simple because it's a contemporary tale. The story plays out in Cape Town, South Africa, in the present day. So please provide a few concise details that describe the antagonistic force that is the origin of the overarching obstacle. If the origin of the overarching obstacle problem is a human or sentient being, the concise description would look something like this: John Doyle, a mercenary; Morgana, a powerful sorceress; alien creatures; or the protagonist's own extreme paranoia. If the origin of the overarching obstacle problem is non-sentient, a natural force, then the concise description would be something like an asteroid, a tsunami. So all it wants to know at this point in time is really basic stuff. So I pre-recorded this. John is his own antagonist. His conflict is an inner conflict fueled by insecurity and rising doubt and paranoia about the faithfulness of his wife, Jill. Let's send that away. Now, please provide further detail regarding the nature of the external and or internal overarching obstacle that John's own insecurity, doubt, and paranoia introduce into his life and world. Well, I've developed this. John has been married to Jill for 17 years. As far as he is concerned, he has a happy marriage. But then something happens that gives him reason to suspect that Jill may be unfaithful to him and is having an affair. I envisage the story as a type of contemporary take on Shakespeare's A Winter's Tale. And that's my seed idea for my story. Okay, and now according to the prompt as instructed, it gives me this. Thanks for that input. Here's the first iteration of the overarching obstacle. An unfounded suspicion of his wife's infidelity triggers deep-seated insecurities in John, causing him to spiral into an increasingly intense state of paranoid jealousy that distorts his perception of reality and threatens to destroy his marriage. To help develop this further, I have some focused questions about the exact nature of this. What specific event or circumstance initially triggers John's suspicion? Is John's paranoia purely about his wife's potential infidelity, or does it connect to deeper psychological issues or past experiences? Does his paranoia manifest primarily as internal doubt, or does it drive him to actively seek evidence of the suspected affair? Is there any real ambiguity about whether Jill is faithful, or is the story purely about John's unfounded paranoia? And does John have any awareness that his suspicions might be irrational, or is he completely consumed by his conviction of her infidelity? Please provide any feedback on this. Now, as you can see, these are already very powerful questions that will stimulate an enormous amount of thought about this overarching obstacle. So here, the prompt has been designed to cause the AI to make me as the writer work, to make me think about my story. It's not telling me the answers, it's asking me to think about them. This would require a lot of thinking and a lot of fleshing out. So let me paste this in here that I've developed for it. John's suspicion begins when they have a barbecue at Mike's house. Mike is married to Sarah. John and Mike, I've got a typo there. John and Mike met 7 years ago and 1 year later established the business together. At the end of the barbecue, John and Jill and their children make ready to leave. They all give each other little goodbye kisses, and John's eye catches Jill and Mike kissing goodbye, but something about the way they do that goodbye kiss seems more intimate and familiar than a casual goodbye kiss should be. But it is not something he can call out there and then. It is very, very subtle. And that's the problem. Is he imagining it, or was there something else going on with that goodbye kiss? John is not sure. So now it gives me a new iteration. A fleeting moment of perceived intimacy between his wife and his business partner, a goodbye kiss that seems to carry more meaning than it should, plants a seed of doubt in John's mind that grows into an all-consuming internal crisis. Unable to definitively prove or disprove what he thinks he saw, John is trapped in a psychological maze where every interaction between Jill and Mike becomes subject to multiple interpretations, and where the very subtlety of the evidence makes it impossible for him to confront the situation directly without appearing irrational. Now there we go. Please provide feedback on this iteration. Is it capturing the essence of the obstacle John faces? Should we adjust or expand any aspects of this description to better reflect your vision of the core problem he must overcome? Okay, so now I have my description of the overarching obstacle, which I could iterate and iterate and iterate on as many times as I like until I'm satisfied. Next, I use a similar type of prompt to develop my thoughts about the impact that overarching obstacle has on John's life and relationships. And then in the same way, I would develop the overarching objective. With the overarching obstacle, the impact and the overarching objective fully crystallized, I have what I call the challenge of my story, the heart of what the story is about, which, by the way, also serves as a concise summary of the story concept for use in pitch decks or proposals. So let's look at that. The overarching obstacle, a fleeting moment of perceived intimacy between his wife and his business partner, a goodbye kiss that seems to carry more meaning than it should, plants a seed of doubt in John's mind that grows into an all-consuming internal crisis. Notice how that is also your one-sentence summary of your story if you are asked for it. Tell me in a single sentence what the story is about. There it is. Now the impact. I went and developed this using the prompt I've developed for impact. This seemingly innocuous moment plants a seed of suspicion of an affair between Jill and Mike, shaking John's perception of what he thought was a happy 17-year marriage, and triggers a cascade of doubt and internal conflict. The very subtlety of the evidence makes it impossible for him to confront the situation directly without appearing irrational. He is torn between trusting his instincts and potentially destroying his family based on what could be a misunderstanding. The situation is complicated by his business partnership with Mike and the potential impact on their unsuspecting children. And then I inputted the prompt for developing out of that, using these two items of content to develop the overarching objective. John must discern the truth about Jill and Mike's relationship balancing his need to find evidence to confirm his suspicions against the risk of destroying his family and business. He must sift fact from fiction and manage his growing paranoia, all while maintaining a facade of normalcy, managing his own emotional turmoil and confronting the possibility that his suspicions might be unfounded. And that is how I've used the AI to help me develop that seed idea into what is now a clear description of the challenge that I will be dealing with in this story. Having developed the challenge, I would then move on to developing detailed descriptions of the primary characters, with prompts designed for each of the elements I showed at the start, working my way towards the final nutshell outline, which merges and blends and accounts for all the content developed for the world of the story, the challenge, character descriptions, and the backbone of the plot. With the nutshell outline done, once again using prompts that I've designed to guide the AI's information processing and responses, the nutshell would then be expanded into a detailed beat-for-beat outline of the story on which my first draft would be based. And that's this Augmentor's writer-AI collaboration process. Thank you for joining me on this journey.